He built an empire from nothing. She taught children how to dream. And one piece of paper destroyed everything they had. This is the story of Daniel and Judy. Daniel Parker was not born rich. He grew up in a small apartment with thin walls and empty cupboards. His mother worked 2 jobs. His father left before he could walk. By the time Daniel turned 25, he had already failed 3 businesses. But failure never stopped him. It taught him. And by 32, Daniel had built a software company worth $12 million. He was sharp. He was driven. And he trusted no one with his money. Then he met Judy. It happened on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in March. Daniel had stopped at a small coffee shop near downtown. He was checking emails on his phone when a woman bumped into his table. Hot coffee spilled across his laptop. He looked up, ready to snap at whoever had just ruined his morning. But then he saw her face. Judy Collins stood there, eyes wide, napkins already in her hand. She was apologizing before he could speak. Her voice was soft but steady. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a bag full of children's books. There was no makeup on her face, no expensive jewelry on her wrists. She looked like someone who had never worried about stock prices or business deals. And for the first time in years, Daniel forgot about work. He told her the laptop was old anyway. She laughed and offered to buy him a new coffee. They sat together for 2 hours. She told him about her 3rd-grade classroom. He told her about his company. She listened without asking how much money he made. He listened without checking his phone. By the end of that conversation, Daniel knew something had shifted inside him. They started dating the following week. And from the very first moment, everything felt different. Judy was not impressed by his penthouse apartment. She did not care about his expensive car. When he took her to a fancy restaurant, she said the food was too small and the music was too loud. She preferred diners with checkered tablecloths and jukeboxes that played old songs. Daniel had dated models. He had dated executives. He had dated women who wanted his name on their arm and his credit card in their purse. But Judy wanted none of that. She wanted him. Just him. And that terrified him more than any business risk ever had. Months passed. Daniel found himself smiling more, working less. He started leaving the office early just to watch Judy grade papers at her kitchen table. He helped her build a reading corner for her classroom. She taught him how to make pancakes on Sunday mornings. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt like he had a home. So when autumn arrived and the leaves turned gold, Daniel made a decision. He bought a ring. Not the biggest one in the store. The one that reminded him of her. Simple. Honest. Beautiful. He proposed on a quiet evening in October. They were walking through the park near her apartment. The sun was setting. The air smelled like rain and fallen leaves. Daniel stopped beneath an old oak tree, took her hands, and asked her to be his wife. Judy cried. She said yes before he even finished the question. They held each other as the streetlights flickered on around them. In that moment, nothing else existed. No money. No contracts. No fear. Just love. But love does not pay lawyers. And Daniel had a very expensive one. 2 weeks after the proposal, Daniel sat in his attorney's office. The man's name was Richard. He had handled Daniel's business deals for over a decade. And he had one piece of advice that he repeated like a prayer. Protect your assets. Richard slid a document across the desk. 20 pages. Legal language. Cold and clinical. A prenuptial agreement. Daniel stared at it for a long moment. He thought about Judy. Her kindness. Her honesty. The way she looked at him like he was enough without the money. But then he thought about his mother. Working double shifts. Coming home exhausted. Losing everything in a divorce that left her broken. Daniel signed the document. And he told himself it was just a formality. The conversation with Judy did not go well. He brought it up over dinner at her apartment. He tried to sound casual. He said his lawyer recommended it. He said it was standard for people in his position. He said it did not change how he felt about her. But Judy's face changed the moment she saw the papers. She did not yell. She did not cry. She just sat there, reading each page slowly. And with every line, Daniel watched something break behind her eyes. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. She asked him if he trusted her. He said of course he did. She asked him why he needed a contract if he trusted her. He said it was not about trust. It was about protection. And that was the wrong word. Judy pushed the papers back across the table. She told him she was not a threat. She was not after his money. She had never asked him for anything except his time and his honesty. And now he was asking her to sign a document that treated her like a risk. Daniel tried to explain. He talked about his childhood, his fears, his need for control. But the more he talked, the further away she seemed. Finally, Judy stood up. She slid the ring off her finger and placed it gently on the table. She told him she loved him, but she could not marry someone who needed a contract to believe in her. Then she walked out the door. Daniel sat alone in that apartment for hours. The ring sat on the table, catching the light. The prenup sat beside it, unsigned. He had built a company worth millions. He had overcome poverty, failure, and doubt. But he could not stop the woman he loved from walking away. Now here is the question that matters. Was Judy wrong for leaving? Or was Daniel wrong for asking? Daniel did not sleep that night. He sat in Judy's empty apartment until the sun came up. The ring never moved from the table. Neither did he. When morning finally arrived, he drove home in silence. His penthouse felt different now. The expensive furniture looked cold. The city view looked gray. Everything he had built suddenly felt like nothing at all. But Daniel was not a man who sat with pain. He buried it. Within a week, he was back at work. Not just back. Obsessed. He arrived before anyone else and left long after midnight. He took meetings he did not need. He started projects he did not want. He filled every hour with noise so he would not have to hear the silence she left behind. His employees noticed the change. His friends stopped calling. His mother left worried voicemails that he never returned. Daniel told himself he was fine. He told himself the breakup was for the best. He told himself that Judy would have left eventually anyway. Everyone leaves. That was the lesson his father taught him before he could even speak. But late at night, when the office was empty and the city lights blinked below, Daniel would stare at his phone. Her name was still there. Her picture was still there. And his thumb would hover over the call button for minutes at a time. He never pressed it. Because Daniel Parker did not chase anyone. He had built his entire life on one simple rule. Never need someone more than they need you. And yet, Judy was everywhere. In the coffee shop where they met. In the park where he proposed. In the small things he never noticed before. A blue dress in a store window. A children's book on a bench. The smell of rain on autumn leaves. He could not escape her. And the harder he tried, the more she haunted him. But what about Judy? What was she doing while Daniel drowned himself in work? She was rebuilding. The first few days were hard. Judy cried more than she wanted to admit. She called in sick to work. She ignored her phone. She replayed that final conversation over and over again, searching for something she might have missed. Had she overreacted? Should she have signed the papers? Was she foolish for walking away from a man who loved her? The questions kept her awake at night. But slowly, something else began to grow. Something she had not felt in a long time. Clarity. Judy had spent her whole life putting others first. Her students. Her family. Her relationships. She gave and gave until there was nothing left. And when Daniel handed her that prenup, she realized something painful but true. She had been about to do it again. She had been ready to shrink herself. To accept less than she deserved. To marry a man who needed a legal document to trust her. And that was not love. That was fear dressed up in a nice suit. So Judy made a choice. She would not beg. She would not wait. She would not sit by the phone hoping Daniel would change his mind. She would move forward. She started small. Morning walks before school. Journaling at night. Coffee with old friends she had neglected. She signed up for a pottery class on weekends. She painted her apartment a soft shade of yellow. Week by week, Judy began to feel like herself again. Not the version of herself that existed in Daniel's world. The real version. The one who laughed too loud and cried at sad movies and believed that love should feel like safety, not a business deal. Her co-workers noticed the change. Her students said she seemed happier. Her mother told her she was proud. And for the first time in months, Judy looked in the mirror and liked what she saw. But here is where the story gets complicated. Because while Daniel and Judy were living their separate lives, the people around them were not staying quiet. Daniel's friends told him he made the right choice. They said Judy was being dramatic. They said any smart woman would have signed the prenup without a second thought. They said he dodged a bullet. Judy's friends told her the opposite. They said Daniel was controlling. They said rich men always think they can buy loyalty. They said she deserved someone who trusted her completely. And then there was family. Daniel's mother called him one Sunday afternoon. She had heard about the breakup from a cousin who heard it from a neighbor. Small towns talk. And his mother had a lot to say. She told Daniel he was a fool. She told him that money had made him hard. She told him that Judy was the best thing that ever happened to him and he threw it away because he was scared. Daniel hung up the phone. But her words stayed with him longer than he wanted to admit. Meanwhile, Judy's sister paid her a visit. She brought wine and opinions in equal measure. She told Judy that maybe she had been too harsh. She told her that prenups were normal now. She told her that love sometimes meant compromise. Judy listened. But she did not agree. Because here is the truth about compromise. It only works when both people are giving something up. Daniel had asked her to sign away her dignity. What had he offered in return? Nothing. So no, Judy was not going to feel guilty for knowing her worth. Weeks turned into months. Winter arrived with cold winds and early darkness. Daniel spent Christmas alone in his penthouse. Judy spent it with her family, laughing and eating too much pie. They did not speak. They did not text. They did not check each other's social media. But that did not mean they stopped thinking about each other. Daniel found himself wondering what she was doing on New Year's Eve. Was she at a party? Was she with someone new? Did she ever think about him the way he thought about her? Judy wondered the same things. She would catch herself mid-thought, imagining Daniel alone in that big empty apartment. She would feel a pull in her chest. And then she would remind herself why she left. Trust. That was all she had asked for. And he could not give it. But time has a way of softening even the sharpest edges. And by the time spring arrived, something had shifted in both of them. Daniel started seeing a therapist. Not because he wanted to. Because his business partner forced him to. The man said Daniel had become impossible to work with. Angry. Distracted. Cold. So Daniel sat on a leather couch once a week and talked about things he had never said out loud. He talked about his father leaving. He talked about his mother struggling. He talked about building walls so high that no one could ever hurt him again. And he talked about Judy. The therapist asked him a simple question one afternoon. A question that broke something open inside him. She asked, "What were you really protecting with that prenup? Your money or your heart?" Daniel did not answer. But he thought about it for days. And slowly, painfully, he began to understand. The prenup was never about protecting his assets. It was about protecting himself. From love. From loss. From the terrifying possibility that someone might leave him the way his father did. He had been so afraid of losing Judy that he pushed her away first. And now she was gone. Meanwhile, Judy was having her own realizations. She was happy. Genuinely happy. She had built a life that felt full and meaningful. She did not need Daniel to complete her. But she missed him. Not the money. Not the lifestyle. Him. The way he laughed at her terrible jokes. The way he listened when she talked about her students. The way he looked at her like she was the only person in the room. She missed the man she fell in love with. The one who existed before lawyers and contracts and fear got in the way. But missing someone is not the same as going back to them. Judy knew that. She had learned it the hard way. So she kept moving forward. one day at a time. And then fate decided to intervene. It happened on a Saturday afternoon in April. The weather was warm. The sky was clear. Judy had stopped at a small bookstore downtown to pick up some new titles for her classroom. She was standing in the children's section, flipping through a picture book about a brave little rabbit, when she heard a voice behind her. A voice she would recognize anywhere. She turned around. And there he was. Daniel. He looked different. Thinner. Tired. But his eyes were the same. And when he saw her, something flickered across his face. Surprise. Hope. Fear. They stood there for a long moment, neither one speaking. The world seemed to shrink around them until nothing else existed. Finally, Daniel said her name. Just her name. Quiet and careful, like he was afraid she might disappear. Judy did not run. She did not yell. She just looked at him. And in that look, Daniel saw everything. The hurt. The healing. The distance they had both traveled to get here. He wanted to apologize. He wanted to explain. He wanted to tell her about the therapy, the sleepless nights, the way he had replayed their last conversation 1,000 times. But the words would not come. So instead, he asked if she wanted to get coffee. Judy hesitated. Every logical part of her brain told her to say no. To protect herself. To walk away before she got hurt again. But her heart said something different. She said yes. They walked to the same coffee shop where they first met. They sat at the same table. And for the first time in almost a year, they talked. Not about the prenup. Not about the breakup. Just talked. About her students. About his company. About the weather and the books and the way the city looked different in spring. It was careful. It was cautious. But it was real. When they finally said goodbye, neither one made any promises. No grand declarations. No plans for the future. But something had shifted. The wall between them had cracked. Just a little. Just enough to let the light in. And now the question remains. Can two people who broke each other's trust ever find their way back? Can love survive when fear has already done its damage? Daniel wanted to believe the answer was yes. But wanting something and earning it are two very different things. And Judy was done accepting anything less than she deserved. So what happens next? Does Daniel prove he has truly changed? Or does Judy walk away for good this time? The answer was coming. And neither one of them was ready for it. Would Daniel finally become the man Judy needed? Or would fear win again? That question hung in the air long after they left the coffee shop. Neither Daniel nor Judy had the answer. But both of them knew that something important had just happened. For the first time in almost a year, they had sat across from each other without anger. Without accusations. Without the weight of that prenup sitting between them like a wall. It was just two people. Talking. Remembering. Wondering if maybe, just maybe, there was still something worth saving. But wondering is easy. Change is hard. Daniel went home that night and sat alone in his living room. The city lights blinked outside his window. The silence felt different now. Not empty. Full. Full of possibility. Full of fear. He thought about everything his therapist had told him. About walls. About control. About the way he had spent his entire life preparing for people to leave instead of giving them reasons to stay. He thought about his father. A man he barely remembered. A man who walked out one morning and never came back. Daniel had been 3 years old. Too young to understand. But old enough to feel the absence for the rest of his life. That absence had shaped everything. His drive. His success. His inability to trust. And it had cost him Judy. But here was the thing Daniel finally understood. He was not his father. He did not have to repeat the same mistakes. He did not have to push away everyone who tried to love him. He had a choice. And for the first time, he was ready to make a different one. So Daniel did something he had never done before. He planned. Not a business deal. Not a strategy. Something real. Something human. He was going to invite Judy to dinner. At his home. And he was going to show her, not just tell her, that he had changed. But how do you prove to someone that you are different? How do you rebuild trust that you broke with your own hands? Daniel thought about this for days. He could buy her gifts. He could make promises. He could say all the right words in all the right ways. But Judy was not a woman who was moved by words. She had heard enough words. She needed action. And then Daniel knew exactly what he had to do. He picked up his phone and called her. His heart was pounding. His palms were sweating. He felt like a teenager asking someone to prom. Judy answered on the third ring. Her voice was calm, careful. She was protecting herself. He understood that now. He asked if she would come to his apartment for dinner on Saturday. Just dinner. No pressure. No expectations. He said he had something important to show her. Judy was quiet for a long moment. Daniel could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. He could feel her hesitation, her doubt. But then she said yes. And Daniel felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Hope. Saturday arrived slowly. Daniel spent the whole day preparing. He cleaned his apartment. He cooked her favorite meal. Pasta with garlic bread and a salad with too many tomatoes, just the way she liked it. He set the table with candles. He put on soft music. He tried to make everything perfect. But perfection was not the point. Honesty was. Judy arrived at 7. She wore a simple green dress. Her hair was down. She looked beautiful. But more than that, she looked strong. Confident. Like a woman who knew her worth and would not settle for less. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had almost lost her forever. And standing there in the doorway, he realized just how much that would have cost him. He welcomed her inside. They made small talk. About the weather. About her students. About the pasta that was almost ready. It felt normal. Easy. Like the early days when everything was simple and love was enough. But both of them knew this night was about more than dinner. They ate slowly. The food was good. The conversation was gentle. Judy laughed at one of his jokes, and the sound filled the room like sunlight. Daniel watched her. He memorized the way she smiled. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking. The way she made even his cold penthouse feel like a home. And then the moment came. Judy set down her fork and looked at him. Really looked at him. She asked why he had invited her here. She asked what he wanted to show her. Daniel took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would decide everything. He stood up from the table and walked to his desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. The same folder his lawyer had given him almost a year ago. The prenup. He walked back to the table and set it down in front of Judy. She looked at it. Her face was unreadable. But her eyes told a different story. Confusion. Curiosity. A flicker of something that might have been hope. Daniel sat down across from her. He did not touch her. He did not reach for her hand. He just spoke. He told her he was sorry. Not for wanting to protect himself, but for making her feel like she was a threat instead of a partner. He told her about his therapy. About the walls he had built. About the father who left and the fear that never went away. He told her that he had spent his whole life preparing for loss. And in doing so, he had created the very thing he was afraid of. He told her that she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. And he had been too scared to see it. And then Daniel did something that surprised even himself. He picked up the prenup. All 20 pages. And he tore it in half. Then he tore it again. And again. Until the pieces were scattered across the table like confetti. Judy watched in silence. Her eyes were wet. Her hands were trembling. Daniel looked at her and said the words he should have said a year ago. He said he trusted her. Completely. Without conditions. Without contracts. Without fear. He said he did not need a piece of paper to protect him from her. Because she was not the danger. His own fear had been the danger all along. He said he loved her. And he was ready to prove it every single day for the rest of his life. The room was silent. The candles flickered. The music played softly in the background. Judy did not speak for a long time. She just sat there, looking at the torn pieces of paper, looking at the man who had finally found the courage to let go. And then she did something unexpected. She did not jump into his arms. She did not say yes. She did not promise to come back. Instead, she smiled. A real smile. Soft and warm and full of something that looked like peace. She told Daniel that she appreciated what he had done. She told him that it meant more than he would ever know. But she also told him that trust is not rebuilt in one night. It is rebuilt in 1,000 small moments. 1,000 choices. 1,000 days of showing up and being honest and choosing love over fear. She was not ready to come back. Not yet. But she was willing to try. She was willing to start over. Slowly. Carefully. One step at a time. Daniel nodded. He understood. For the first time, he truly understood. Love was not about grand gestures. It was not about tearing up contracts or making big speeches. It was about patience. Consistency. Showing up even when it was hard. And Daniel was ready to do all of that. For as long as it took. They finished dinner that night with lighter hearts. They talked about the future. Not in big promises. In small possibilities. Maybe a coffee next week. Maybe a walk in the park. Maybe, someday, something more. When Judy left that evening, she did not kiss him goodbye. She did not make any promises. But she did turn around at the door and look at him one last time. And in that look, Daniel saw everything he needed to know. The door was not closed. It was open. Just a crack. But open. And that was enough. Weeks passed. They saw each other more. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became dinner. Dinner became long walks through the city as summer arrived and the days grew warm. They did not rush. They did not pretend the past had not happened. They talked about it. Honestly. Openly. They worked through the hurt and the fear and the doubt. And slowly, something beautiful began to grow. Not the rushed, intense love of before. Something deeper. Something stronger. A love built on truth instead of hope. On respect instead of need. Daniel learned to be vulnerable. Judy learned to trust again. They learned to be partners instead of protector and protected. And one evening, as they sat together on a bench in the park where he had once proposed, Judy reached over and took his hand. She did not say anything. She did not have to. Daniel looked at her. The woman who had walked away when he gave her every reason to. The woman who had come back when he finally gave her a reason to stay. He squeezed her hand. And they sat there in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. The story of Daniel and Judy did not end with a wedding. It did not end with a perfect happily ever after. It ended with something better. A beginning. A new chapter written by two people who had learned the hardest lesson of all. That love is not about control. It is not about protection. It is not about contracts or guarantees. Love is about trust. Pure and simple. The courage to be vulnerable. The strength to let someone in. The faith to believe that some things are worth the risk. Daniel and Judy found that faith. Not all at once. Not without struggle. But they found it. And that made all the difference. Now here is my question for you. Have you ever let fear destroy something beautiful in your life? Have you ever pushed someone away because you were afraid of getting hurt? Or maybe you have been on the other side. Maybe someone you loved could not trust you. Maybe you had to walk away to protect your own heart. Whatever your story is, I want to hear it. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Was Judy right to leave? Was Daniel right to let her go? And do you believe they will make it this time? Your stories matter. Your voices matter. And this channel exists because of you. So hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Because we all deserve a love built on trust. Until next time.